Well, good evening and welcome to the Planning Board, Town of Mills River, June edition. And let's start out with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. I trust everyone's had a chance to look at the agenda, and the chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, and thank you. All those in favor? Aye. All right. And also, I trust that everyone's had a chance to look at the minutes. So the minutes from the last meeting in May. If anyone has any comments or concerns about them, if not, chair would entertain a motion to approve. Thank you. Second? Anyone? All right. Mr. Cole and Mr. Ross, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and do we have any public comment?
Someone did.
Okay. Sir, thank you for being here. Like to come speak? And if you would, please tell us your name and where you live.
My name is Buster Brown,
Mr. Brown, welcome.
and I actually live in Asheville, but I'm the owner of Tilton Bee Farm,
Okay, sir.
just down the road. First, let me say I appreciate you all starting off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm here to comment about the planning appeal to rezone our property from industrial to residential.
Yes, sir.
Just a couple points. We have had a number of people look at it from an industrial standpoint and to no avail. They cannot make it work with the river frontage, with some wetlands from Taupo, and it just is not economically feasible, not working for anybody. So that's my first comment. Second comment is that it's been in the family for over 60 years. My parents passed about 10 years ago. I know that they would much prefer to have residential as compared to industrial. That's the emotional side. I'm a builder. I build in Nashville, and I know how we need residential abodes. We need places that people, and this area is growing, Asheville's growing. So that's my last comment is we need places to people to live that they can enjoy. Mills River is a great area. It's centrally located. I mean, I'm not telling you anything y'all don't know. Personally, we just don't want to see another box or big box on our property, which is about 75 acres. So short but sweet. I know we're looking at this. I know they have a great plan, and hopefully you'll see the benefit of going residential also.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank
Okay.
you for coming tonight.
All right.
All right. And for old business, I see that we have none for tonight. So we can start right up with our new business. We have the first item is R24-03, request for rezoning at 14 Brandy Branch Road. So we have the applicant here.
I do not believe the applicant's here tonight, but
Okay.
Kevin Webb, planning technician, is going to handle this one.
Thank you, Mr. Webb.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So on April 22nd, 2024, the town received a rezoning application from Bill Cater, or the owner of 14 Brandy Branch Road. The application requests to rezone the subject property from MRLI, light industrial, to MRMU, mixed use. The subject property consists of approximately 2.14 acres, has no existing structures on it, and is located in a commercial industrial subdivision, the Brandy Branch Industrial Park. All existing structures in the subdivision are non-residential. The Mills River Light Industrial Zoning District provides a place for the location of industrial uses that would rather be incompatible with general business areas. Some uses allowed by right are manufacturing, distribution facilities, storage facilities, fabrication facilities, processing facilities, and similar uses that follow the spirit and intent of the ordinance. The MRMU mixed-use zoning district is intended to allow all uses by right except 3 high-intensity uses. There are uses permitted with standards such as vehicle graveyards, mobile and manufactured home graveyards, and uses also governed by other ordinances, such as for manufactured home parks, communication towers, et cetera. Also, there's a major special use permit process for tiny home parks, park model parks, and recreational vehicle parks. The rezoning application lists the proposed zoning district as MRMU, mixed use, and all possible uses in this district must be taken into consideration. Once rezoned, any uses allowed in the new district may be permitted, and failure to consider all possible uses or consider limited uses may be viewed as contract zoning, which is impermissible. Contract zoning is defined as a conventional rezoning district based solely on one use other than all permissible uses allowed in the proposed zoning district. So all the parcels immediately adjacent to the northern and eastern property lines of the subject property are MRMU, mixed use. All parcels located adjacent to the western and southeastern property lines are zoned MR light industrial. The subject property and all surrounding property is designated in the future land use map as community center. One thing to note is there is a conflict in the Making Mills River Comprehensive Plan regarding the consistency of this rezoning request. On page 30, the land use vision map categories, the comprehensive plan states that a community center future land use categories to promote a mix of uses to include commercial, residential, industrial uses, and agricultural. However, on page 31, you'll see the land uses by category chart. Industrial uses are noted or listed as not desirable in that category. Staff believe this is an error in the comprehensive plan. So our interpretation is that the community center future land use category was designated to encourage a mix of uses, including industrial. We find that the rezoning request to mixed use is consistent with the comprehensive plan and future land use map, since many of the permitted uses in the mixed use district align with the desirable mix of uses for the community center future land use category. This rezoning request will most likely not trigger a spot zoning challenge, which is defined as rezoning one parcel differently from adjacent properties in the surrounding area. Spot zoning is legal if supported by a reasonable basis, the factors of reasonableness. The subject property is adjacent to other parcels located in the MRMU mixed-use zoning district. Therefore, no spot zoning is created through the proposed zoning map amendment. But to protect against a spot zoning challenge, the planning board may consider the following factors of reasonableness, which are the size and physical attributes of the site, the compatibility with the existing comprehensive land use plan, the benefits and detriments to the landowner, the neighbors and the community, the relationship between the proposed uses and the current uses of adjacent properties, and why the rezoning is in the public interest and if any changed conditions warranting the rezoning. It is at the board's pleasure to discuss these factors of reasonableness to put in the record. Staff recommends approval of this rezoning request due to consistency with Making Mills River, the comprehensive plan, and the future land use vision map. Staff specifically finds objective 1.6, objective 2.7, and objective 6.2 consistent with this rezoning. So in lieu of the discrepancy between the types of desirable and acceptable uses between the land use vision map categories on page 30 of the comp plan and on page 31, the land use category chart. Staff recommends approval of the rezoning request as the spirit and intent of the proposed zoning district is aligned with the definition of the community center future land use category on page 30. The planning board's role in this request is advisory, and its opinions are as follows. 1, recommend approval of the request. 2, table for additional consideration up to 30 days. 3, recommend denial of the request. The planning board must also submit a statement of consistency with adopted plans for town council's consideration. A draft of this statement is included for the board's review. And now I'll go through the attachments. Attachment A is the application for the rezoning to amend the official zoning map. Attachment B is an aerial image of 14 Brandy Branch Road. Subject property. Attachment C is the zoning ordinance excerpt for MR Light Industrial. Attachment D is the MR Mixed Use District zoning ordinance excerpt. Attachment E is the current zoning for the property. As you see in purple is light industrial, the subject property. Attachment F is the proposed zoning map amendment to change it to MRMU. As you'll note, the green is all MR mixed use for the proposed zoning map. Attachment G is the rezoning for the land use vision map. So what category the subject property is located in. As you see, it is in the community center, including adjacent properties. Attachment H, you'll see on the right side of the page, the land use vision map categories, and highlighted is community center. You'll see the type of uses that this future land use map area is encouraged to use. And lastly, or second to last, attachment I is the land use category chart. You'll see highlighted community center with desirable, acceptable, and non-desirable uses. And you'll see how there's a conflict with the prior page where it says industrial is not desirable, but it says industrial is promoted on the prior page. So, and lastly, this is the staff's recommended draft statement of consistency, attachment J, front and back, last page. If y'all have any questions, I'd be happy to take them. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that. I do have one question and see if I understand this. This is, and we're not supposed to look at uses.
Correct.
However, it does say that the use is to have a single family home on the same property. I mean, it's written there.
Yes.
So we understand if we zone it MRMU, then any use that's by right MRMU can go there.
Correct.
Would it not be in the benefit of the applicant to split that piece of property off? We zone that piece of property to MRMU because it's like every other property adjacent, and then leave where they plan to build a warehouse as a separate piece of property. So, I mean, if I'm me personally, if I'm living in a home that's tied to an industrial use and you sell the industrial use, we either got to split it then or my home goes with it. So I was just wondering, would that be something that could be considered? Or is that something that would be worth bringing up to them?
We can't speak for the property owner. I do know that because it's in one of the water supply watersheds, there are the impervious surface limitations. I believe that played a factor. But again, we just included that to show the reason for the
Mhm.
property owner seeking the rezoning, was to just put a single family home for a family member.
Sure.
In preliminary discussions, they said that the single family home would actually connect to Clement Drive, which is the private road behind the subject property. And then they are proposing that there would be a commercial use that would also connect to Brandy Branch. But again, barring all that, the board should consider all uses.
So-
We didn't bring that specific.
Sure. So, yeah, that would make sense why they can't split that property off. But then, once it's rezoned to MRMU, then that access to Brandy Branch, I'm sorry, to Clement Drive being there might be of concern to the neighbors.
We actually know a lot about Clement because the adjacent businesses, like you can see 8 Brandy Branch here, they actually had an MSD Buncombe sewer line extension put up Clement Drive, and it took about a year and a half longer because they found out that there's no owner of the street, there's no deeded right of way, there's nothing. So it's essentially you may access it because there are no limitations.
Okay.
So we determined in preliminary discussions with the applicant that if he wanted to connect to it specifically for that single family home, there's nothing we could do to prevent that.
And to me, that would make sense to connect it there.
Mhm.
I have a question. Has
Yes,
it
sir.
been posted for rezoning around the property, and is there anybody a neighbor here that this?
So,
That's
Mr.
it.
Oliver, that is for the public hearing that will go towards council. We haven't got to that point yet. Once we, get a recommendation from the planning board, then we will go through that process, such as doing, sending letters to adjacent property owners, posting the property, going through all the legal public notice requirements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would just help me with making this a decision easier if we do that side first. See,
I first read this, basically what Jeff said, came to mind to me. Read the thing about proposing to build a home, some of the family. That sounds real good to me. If we have a business here in Mills River and family run, I think. Sort of ensure or help maintain what I see Mills River was and is at present and should remain. But then another thought came to mind, and y'all correct me. This couldn't be a conditional rezone for that. When he wants to build a house, that would accomplish what he's wanting to do.
You're saying, could he go through that process and accomplish the same thing?
Yeah, to build his house, he wants.
It's possible. I mean,
Well, you all know where I stand on this multi-purpose thing, because multi-purpose thing, it could have graveyards, mobile home manufacturers, graveyards, and all kinds of wind turbines, and solid waste disposal under multi-purpose. That, you know where I stand on all that. It's opens up a lot of possibilities.
So that does bring up, if they were to go conditional zoning, then under that, we could specify the uses that could go there.
Yeah, that was,
And that would protect the property, the neighborhood against other uses. There could be a list of uses and they could come in and help suggest uses that could go there. Otherwise, it's MRMU until such point community center is determined to be a zoning district, if ever.
Michael, we can't build residential and light industrial right now today.
Correct.
Sorry, Kevin. Thank you for the presentation, by the way. Sorry.
Yeah, it was a good presentation.
So that's what they're trying to accomplish. And then you have impervious surface issues if they were to overdevelop. whatever percentage in there.
The briefest summary is, you're correct, light industrial does not allow residential. There's a base zoning district that does allow both, and that's what the applicant's chosen to rezone to.
Right.
One other thing to take into consideration is we already have the application before us, so we do need to carry this through the entire process.
Sure.
And it doesn't matter what the recommendation is tonight. But if if this is not approved, remember, there's the 1-year waiting period to rezone again. Doesn't matter if it's conditional or conventional. So if this were to fail, then the property owner would have to wait a year. And if they wanted to, they could conditionally rezone. I'm a little hesitant to drive people towards that process. I mean, we mention all options to people, but again, since it has to be initiated by the property owner, but Mr. Cater felt with mixed use being there that he could accomplish what he wanted through this conventional rezoning.
But just to clarify, if we reject it flat out, if it gets rejected flat out at the end of the process, there's no exception to that 12-month wait period.
No,
Okay, I don't.
But if it were tabled
No, but that, if it were tabled.
and
then
they
we-
withdrew it and
Let's
then
use Watson right now. It
resubmitted,
Says, I hear them, they're telling me to withdraw this permit and re-put in conditional. If we tell him that that's the best way to do this, then it's the 12 month, it triggers a 12 months.
I'll just say that gets complicated because we have a paid application and the process has begun. So I mean, basically we have an applicant that's paid to go through this process. The planning, since it's not a planning board action, the planning board's limited by the 60-day window to make a decision. So either this meeting or the next meeting, a recommendation should be made either way. We'll, you know, if the board's direction is to direct us to talk to the applicant about going through a different rezoning process, we could look at that, but we can't force that on them.
So Kevin, to clarify, and I know you said this twice, and I was trying to follow with it. There's kind of a natural or contradiction, community center, not desirable of industrial.
Correct.
And explain to me again what kind of counters that and says that actually is it the Mills River mixed use?
So are you talking about the contradictions on page, from attachment I and?
31, yes,
Gotcha.
yes.
So
I know you said it twice. I'm just asking for clarification because
correct. So we, staff, we looked at the fact that, on page 30 of the comprehensive plan, that the community center category is more descriptive than just a permitted use chart or a desirable, acceptable, or not desirable chart. Is that
the word
Sure.
industrial is in both of them though.
but industrial on page 31 is not desirable. While on page 30, it says it's an
Industrial and agricultural.
exactly. So that is, and the property owner wants to rezone to mixed use.
Correct.
So that community center,
Clement is mixed use, 80% or more if it's residential, and I know we can't get into that, but it is mixed use right now, all the way to 280, or I'm sorry, to 191, correct?
so I believe, if we look on,
I'm sorry, it's right here. So everything
Yeah.
except for at the end
yeah, so let's see.
on 191.
Green-
Yes.
Yep, so all the green, yep, is mixed use, along just north of Clement, also to the northeast.
I'm struggling to see where there's a massive inconsistency. I lean towards a yes on this. I feel when you look at community centers and you look at the mixed use, ideally, I'd love to see conditional applied here, ideally. However, I'd also make it conditional on a Clement entrance for the residential portion and,
Mhm.
but I don't think, just because that's a good option or a better option, I don't know, this isn't an acceptable one to me, unless I hear something to really sway me, what that's worth. That was a poll.
Are we polling? And I agree, and especially the having to wait a year if we turn this down, and at some point they may want to come in and request a subdivision to separate the single family home, and at that point there won't need to be a rezoning. And it's just, whatever. And I didn't realize that it was part of the watershed restrictions that causes that. And that does make sense.
Is each structure subject to a minimum lot size?
So, residential structures are limited to lot size in the watershed. For non-residential development, it goes based off percentage of impervious surfaces for the entire parcel. So percentages for non-residential and minimum lot size for residential.
So the 30,000 applies. Period.
I mean, going back to mixed use as a unique zoning district that allows multiple uses, multiple residential homes on one parcel, multiple buildings of different uses on one parcel. Again, it's just a strange zoning district that this happens to fit within. But if, if Mr. Cater had split the lot, again, with the watershed rules, and again, we didn't go into this analysis, but we did go through a couple preliminary plan versions where he looked at the percent built upon area impervious surface coverage. And again, I think this is just what he felt served his interest the best.
Have any other questions or discussion? No other questions. Chair would be glad to entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, but you know I suck at these. So I'm gonna ask for
Aye.
guidance from Ms. Taylor. I'm terrible at these, I meant. I didn't mean. I could use a little improvement. Are we there yet?
Yeah,
So
I would agree.
If you'll coach me on what you need to hear to get it right the second time, I mean, the first time, that would be great.
And I think first is just whether to recommend approval or denial. Then this,
And
then
statement of
we do a
consistency.
statement of
So
consistency.
rezoning R-2403. Making a motion that we approve the request for rezoning R-2403 and adopt the planning board statement of consistency as provided in attachment J.
Is it not more like they recommend that the council?
Yeah, we recommend.
Recommend to the council to the council for approval. That's the second time, I told you up front. Second time.
Got it.
Is that acceptable, Ms. Taylor?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right then. Thank you. In a second, anyone? Thank you, Mr. Kimsey. All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? If not, vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, sounds like that's unanimous, and I will sign the statement of consistency. All right, thank you. And thank you, Kevin. It's well done.
Thank you, sir.
We just end up looking at Michael out of habit, so we'll, thank you. It's good to have you here.
Thank you. I know it's kind of weird, but kind of strange first.
That's great. Okay, now we have our first request for conditional zoning. So if y'all will bear with us, we're learning this as we go. We've got some great guidance here where, but tonight we have a request for conditional rezoning, R-2401. Mr. Malachek.
Thank you. So we received an application, remember with conditional zoning, those come 60 days before the planning board meeting it's considered at. So we got that in on April 1st from Northwood Raven LLC, acting as an agent for the current owner, Tilton B LLC, Mr. Brown, who's here with us tonight. The application requests to rezone 232 Brown Ridge Road and 2 of the adjacent parcels from Mills River Light Industrial to Mills River Residential Conditional District. It's about 74 acres of property there. Right now, it's just a single home, tennis court, horse pastures, barns, and some other outbuildings on the property. Remember, there's specific requirements to even be able to submit a conditional rezoning. So because this property is more than 2 acres contiguous size, and because it has a future land use map designation of an industrial and employment, they qualified for this process. So we just talked about the light industrial district. So we know what that provides a place for manufacturing, warehousing, et cetera, distribution. I'm going to read this straight from the paper so I don't mess it up. The proposed conditional district tonight, the specific details of it are in attachment F, but I've summarized them here in the staff report. So the proposed conditional district lists multifamily development as a permitted use in up to 65 residential buildings with up to 290 dwelling units at a density of 4 units per acre, plus customary accessory buildings and uses, a clubhouse, leasing office, and other uses and features shown on the preliminary master plan submitted for consideration tonight. The multifamily development will be in accordance with all of the town's multifamily development standards, except for the following. So again, remember with conditional rezoning, these are some of the standards you can deviate from. As listed in the attachment for the proposed conditional district, maximum building height is proposed at 45 feet. That's a 10-foot difference from the town's multifamily standard of 35. There's a minimum separation between residential buildings is 20 feet. That varies from 20 to 30 feet in our standard multifamily requirements, depending upon the building length. The district requests that parking shall not be required to be set back from building walls, whereas in our standard multifamily ordinance, it's a 10-foot setback for parking. And setbacks for all residential lots will comply with the standards of the multifamily section of town zoning code. The building setback from the exterior property line adjacent to Boylston Highway will be 20 feet, not 30 feet, so 10-foot difference there. And then the development may install a maximum of 3 monument signs, which actually meets our standard sign allowance because there's 3 streets the development abuts. So all the parcels, again, we'll go through the traditional analysis just like we did for the conventional rezoning. So all the parcels adjacent to the subject property are zoned light industrial to the northwest and west. That's the Amazon, a lot of the businesses near Broadpoint Industrial Park. And then parcels adjacent to the subject property to the south and southeast are zoned MR30, so low density residential. So since this is a first one for us, this is one thing I wanted to highlight, but I think it'll continue to happen. So as staff, we always look at the future land use map and the comprehensive plan together, but in this situation, kind of separately as well. So the rezoning request is technically not consistent with the future land use map because again, future land use calls for industrial and employment uses. But because we're doing a conditional rezoning where you can conditionally rezone to a specific district with a site-specific development plan with specific uses, I believe it's going to be common that when conditional rezonings are done, they may not be consistent with the future land use map, because the whole point of conditional zoning is to open up this flexibility of uses, structures, etc. But again, it's our job to point out whether it's inconsistent or consistent. So I just wanted to raise that to your attention. And then again, as Mr. Brown talked about earlier, and I've entertained a lot of these calls with industrial developers as well. There's been issues just with industrial development being able to mass grade the property. It's just not feasible. But again, staff found that if you're just looking at the future land use map, the request is inconsistent. However, staff found that the request is consistent with our comprehensive plan objectives, and those are outlined there and in the draft statement of consistency. And again, rezonings can be recommended for approval that are not consistent. We just have to have a reasonable basis for that decision. We talked about spot zoning earlier. It's a relatively large property. So again, probably not open to a spot zoning challenge, but again, it's always wise to just discuss those factors of reasonableness, which are laid out in the staff report. So staff's recommendation is that we recommend approval of the rezoning request with the condition that the developer construct a southbound left turn lane on Fanning Fields Road at Milesview Drive within the existing road right-of-way and provide a pedestrian sidewalk from the site to the Broadpoint Drive signal for future connection to the Mills River Valley Trail. Again, planning board's role is advisory. So recommend approval with or without conditions. We can table for up to 30 days because this is a more complex development. If the planning board does need more time, that would just be something we need to communicate to council. And if council is fine with giving the planning board additional time to consider it, then we can move forward with that. And then obviously the other option is recommend denial of the request. So we've got a lot in your packet tonight because I just want to make sure everyone had all the information they needed. So attachment A is just the paper application. Attachment B is the appointment of agent form where Mr. Brown's giving Northwood Raven and their team responsibility to apply for this on his behalf. We've got a property survey, which also identifies environmental areas, wetlands, floodways as attachment C. Just a normal GIS property map as attachment D. The existing light industrial uses, attachment E. The proposed conditional zoning district uses and description as attachment F. That's the one that lists what is being deviated from and the uses that will be allowed in the new district. We've got the current zoning map as attachment G, the future land use map as attachment H, the future land use category chart as attachment I, and then the preliminary master plan as attachment J. I believe there's a couple pages there. And then we have Asheville water availability letter as attachment K, sewer availability letter as attachment L, the full traffic impact analysis as attachment M. We have the review memos from DOT and the town for the TIA as attachment N, and the TIA addendum submitted by the applicant as attachment O, and then finally the statement of consistency as attachment P. The only reason we included all of the documents regarding the TIA is just because we weren't able to finalize everything with DOT before the meeting tonight. But so again, just wanted to give everyone all the information available for your consideration. We have the applicant and their team here tonight. They do have a PowerPoint presentation as well. So I'll leave it up to Mr. Chair, whether you'd like to hear from them first or ask me questions. It's up to your pleasure.
Do we have questions before we hear from the applicant, or perhaps the applicant will answer our questions? Okay, so we'd love to hear from the applicant. Thank you, Mr. Swords. Welcome tonight.
Good evening, everyone. My name. Sure. My name is Jesse Swords. I'm a land use attorney with Allen Stahl and Kilbourne, based out of Asheville. And thanks for letting me be part of your first conditional zoning application. It's an honor, and I think if you were going to put together a team to do it, I think you would want these guys. I'd like to take credit for putting them together, but Kyle is here, and he's the one who actually did it. We have Kyle, who's the developer with Northwood Raven. We also have Anthony from Northwood Raven. We have David from RVI, who is the land use planner and landscape architect. John from CDG Engineering, civil engineer. And Alan from Impact Designs, our traffic engineer. The architecture team is also, very much a part of the planning at this stage. They are not here tonight. They plan to attend at council. So with those brief introductions, I'll hand it over to Kyle to, kind of give a little bit of history about Northwood Raven and just kind of an overview of the project vision.
Thanks, Jesse. Is it the big button? I guess it is. Okay. Thanks again, Jesse. Like Jesse said, my name's Kyle Whitaker. I'm development partner at Northwood Raven, developer of the site. So since it's our first project in Mills River, I just wanted to provide a quick background on us, who we are. So we're based here in North Carolina. I said, as is Anthony, in our Raleigh-Durham office. Our company itself, we were formed in 2011 as a spinoff somewhat from the residential division of Crosland, who you may have heard of in the past. They were very active pre-2008 recession here in the western part of the state. They built more Park Town Center and several other projects. Coming out of that, our CEO, David Raven, formed a venture with Northwood Investors, and that's where Northwood Raven came from. So we're a little bit unique in the real estate development world, and that we have in-house development capabilities, interior design, construction, and property management. So we oversee our projects from start to finish, from conceptualization through design. Our team builds the projects, our teams manage them. We're long-term holders of our projects, and that approach allows us to really kind of be hands-on through every part and piece of it, and ensure they're built to the best construction standards and the best design standards possible. Design is kind of one of our core values of our company, if you will. Our CEO himself is a registered architect, trained as an architect, so that kind of percolates down to everything that we do. Myself, Anthony, most of the members on our development team have design backgrounds in engineering or architecture. So we really take an approach to every site that's super hyper focused on the design of that particular site. We have no two projects that are the same if you look across our portfolio, and we tried to bring that here to this site as well. Let's see if that's right. Oh, close that. Pressing the buzz right out. So.
You just tell me.
Okay. Yeah. There's not a lot. So you get it. Yeah. So just wanted to talk a little bit about this. Whoa. That's probably all the clicks I just did. So talk a little bit about this site in particular. We really like Mills River, particularly like this site here in Mills River. We kind of look at it as like that gateway to all the outdoor activities and outdoor lifestyle that people really think of when they think about wanting to live in the western part of North Carolina. So as we looked at this site, first thing we think about is how do we make this a great place to live? Buster touched on it earlier, some of the natural features of the site that made it hard to develop in the past. We tried to take advantage of those. The topography itself, we looked at how can we tier the site and gradually transition grading really to kind of make the site work from a grading standpoint, but also give people good views from as many units as possible. How do we can preserve the streams to help buffer from some of that industrial use that's adjacent to us? So the stream there, you can kind of see on the plan left side as a buffer. And then also the French Broad, right, which is we think going to be a great amenity of the site, but preserving that natural area up along the French Broad for some open common space and walking trails and that sort of thing that'll really make it a great place to live. The other thing we really tried to study was the product types. Every site we look at, we said, what makes sense here? Obviously, that for the site like this, that is not large scale apartment buildings. We also didn't want to do, kind of cookie cutter, rinse and repeat. There we go. Rinse and repeat homes. So we tried to provide a variety of product types within that. So, everything from townhomes to kind of smaller scale apartment buildings that have 8 units in them, to kind of what we'll call a cottage style unit that kind of feels a little more like a individual residence. So we believe that, creates a lot of diversity of the product type and will attract a wide variety of residents, which is obviously key, we think, to making a great community. Try this again here. Nope. So, there we go. So these slides are just a couple precedent images from some of our other projects in and around North Carolina of some of that similar product type, some townhomes, some cottage style units, some of those smaller scale apartment buildings, really just to provide a little context for what we think and the type of thing we're looking to do here at the Brown Ridge site. So once again, we're really excited to be here in Mills River and for this project to take shape, and hand it back over to Jesse.
All right, see if I have the magic touch on this remote. It's like probably not. Yeah, if you would just go to the perspective rendering, I think it's just after. Yep, there it is. So I just have a few policy points that I want to go through. The staff report was great. It was very complete and very thorough. But I went through the comprehensive plan myself, and I just want to kind of hit a few high points and a couple things that I want to mention in the staff report. First of all, one of the goals of this development, this is going to be a range of housing types at a range of price points. So this will provide an affordable place to live in Mills River. One of the things I've heard is that, people who grew up in Mills River are being priced out of Mills River, and this will be an option, as well as, housing affordability is closely tied to the availability of housing. So if we have more housing, more housing will be affordable. And, it's tied directly to the comprehensive plan. Objective 2.2 is variety and mix of housing types. And policy 2.2.1 allow for a variety of housing types, including single-family dwellings, apartments, multiple unit buildings, townhomes, condominiums, accessory housing, and manufactured homes. And it's also related to objective 2.8, availability of workforce and affordable housing. So this is a range of price points, and that comes with the range of housing types. So this is the type of development that provides both employees and customers for Mills River businesses. I also wanted to mention objective 2.9, incentives for desired housing. This project, I think, is desired housing based on comprehensive plan. And of course, we're doing it without asking for subsidy, which I thought was a fun point to add. It also benefits the town in kind of a larger sense. If you want to move to the next slide, and then, so this is just this is the future land use map, the vision map, and then the next slide zooms in. Objective 4.3 is expanded tax base and long-term fiscal responsibility. This is the type of development that expands the tax base. Right now, there are not a whole lot of taxes being paid on this property. This will significantly increase taxes paid on this property if this project goes through here. At the same time, the location is a little bit on the periphery of the town of Mills River, which I think, I'm hoping will ease any concerns about, changing the character of the town. It's next to the Amazon warehouse. It's, a little bit away from, what I think we would consider the core of Mills River. So it's kind of the, win-win in that sense. It provides all these benefits to the town, without some of the perceived drawbacks that I hear people talk about. So policy 6.2.1, consider the availability and capacity of land to support job development and land development review and policy formation. As we heard, this is land that's been passed over for industrial development because of site challenges. And this project is utilizing that site for housing, which again, provides customers and employees, increases affordability. I did want to address the staff report comment about inconsistency with the future land use map. And I like to talk about why that is. Future land use maps in general, not just town of Mills River, but everywhere, they're not set in stone. They're not exactly designed to be set in stone. A lot of them I see don't even they have fuzzy boundaries around things. And that is kind of reflective of the reality that, it's hard to predict the future. You don't know who is going to come along and want to invest in this community and what kind of stuff they build. So keeping some flexibility allows the town to grow, as the developers, come to the town. It also reflects the reality that comprehensive plan, even though it's a big study, a lot goes into it, it can never be 100% exhaustive and it can never be 100% detailed. So when you zoom into a particular site, the natural variability in the land, that it might not be significant enough when you're looking, at the larger picture, suddenly you start to see more details and you start to realize, something different might make sense for this little piece. When it comes to spot zoning, I don't really see a concern with this one, particularly because it would touch the MR30, the orange on the future land use map there. And when it comes to conditional zoning, a lot of the considerations that, town council will, and y'all will take into account overlap with those reasonableness factors we heard in the previous application. So this is also responsible high quality development. Objective 3.1 in the comprehensive plan is natural lands preservation. Policy 3.1.1, seek opportunities to preserve forest land, lowlands, wetlands, and critical habitat. Policy 2.3.4, create policies that allow for cluster development and conservation subdivisions for the purposes of providing open space and preserving natural areas. So as we saw on the site plan, and we can go to the next slide, and one more. And this is the perspective rendering. The clustering here, along with the overall density limit for this land, it results in preserved open space and natural areas, places that can't be built on because building more would result in a higher density that's allowed. So the wetlands and, the river and all these things, these are going to be preserved, and they, indefinitely, because, building anything else would go over the existing limit. Objective 3.3, watershed and water quality protection. One of the, I think, undersung benefits to master planning a large development like this is that the stormwater all gets planned at once. It provides a much better end result than when you have, onesie, twosie houses being built and they don't have to comply with any stormwater regulations in a lot of cases. And it's the same for, master planning for, how traffic is going to work, how people are going to move around within the development, being able to share this open space, all of that has a lot of benefits. People see, huge development and I think don't appreciate the ability to plan that the large development provides. And then my last little point here, objective 3.4, limited air, noise, and light pollution, policy 3.4.2. Encourage neighborhood design techniques that limit the effects of highway and other noise on residential areas. I'm gonna ask David to come and talk about the planning of the site design. I will say that, I've been doing this for a few years. This project in particular has had a lot of homework go into it to get to this stage. I don't often see the architects deeply involved, before an application is even put in with the town. They have been, working on these different product types. They're innovative product types, as far as what I have seen, a lot of them are essentially townhomes designed to live like single family homes. And I'll let David speak more about that. But I did want to mention one of the things we were asking for in the conditions was elimination of the 10-foot setback for the parking. And that is because of the kind of courtyard style housing types that David will talk about. So it's really a cool project, I think, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
I have a question before you say that.
Sure.
Like percentage wise, how many of these homes would be like considered affordable housing?
So I don't know, and I'll let Kyle elaborate on this. I don't know that we're going for anything that meets any technical definitions. It's more a product of, the range of housing types being provided will be at a range of price points, if that makes any sense. When you say affordable housing, that has a specific definition, that's part of a HUD federal regulation, we're not going to that level at this point.
I think that's word you brought up, Brian, affordable.
Yeah, affordable in the larger sense, not in the hyper technical, federal regulation sense. Also, we'll have John with available for questions on civil engineering stuff, and Alan on the traffic stuff. Right now, I'd like to let Dave come up and talk about the site.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for your time this evening. So yeah, just gonna kind of hit again on that objective 3.4, the limited air, noise, and light pollution, and specifically policy 3.4.2, which is to encourage neighborhood design techniques that limit the effects of highway and other noise in residential areas. So when we were laying out this site, one of the things that we really wanted to make sure that we were doing was designing with the site, designing the site, factoring in setbacks, using the preservation of existing vegetation along our fringes, especially against Boylston and the French Broad River, and also, like Jesse said, against Amazon to kind of separate us and use that natural feature of the wetland and the stream that runs through there as a natural feature. And then using the topography also, allowing the community to stay a little bit up and above the roadway so that the noise from the highway is buffered and screened by existing vegetation, as well as the change in elevation between where Boylston is and where our development will be. And so, yeah, that's, they all shift the traffic from Boylston, and they reduce the noise to those proposed residential areas. We're also looking at using efficient fixtures, lighting fixtures for street lighting and landscape lighting, part of the noise and light pollution, to minimize that light pollution off of our site. And then one thing that Northwood Raven is known for and does on all of their projects is they'll actually go for green building certifications, whether that be Green Globes or NHAB or LEED or sites. One last thing I'll kind of mention here is that where we have areas where existing vegetation does not provide full buffering of noise, we will be providing additional landscaping and buffering with our plant material, most likely evergreens and very native, to help again create that separation of noise from the surrounding to our residential properties. And like Jason said, this is a really cool project. We're pushing the boundaries a lot on the residential product types, how they lay out, how they live, the lifestyle that will come along with this neighborhood. I believe this will be a great fit within Mills River, and I hope you guys agree.
Dave, can I ask
Yeah.
you something?
Yeah, go for it.
I believe it's for you, charging stations.
We have not talked charging stations at this point. I've seen a lot of developers do it. I will let Kyle speak
Okay.
to whether or not they're doing it in them other ones, but we have not necessarily dove into that level of detail.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
I can answer that one.
Sure.
I have a question for the
Oh.
other gentleman. Go ahead.
Just on the
Go
charging
ahead.
station, we will have them. I don't have an exact number, but it's something that we've seen market-wide. We really kind of have to.
Have they not added that to the green building certified, for, multifamily? Is that not something that?
Some of the green building
motivation for the
certifications
certification?
require it. Most of them don't necessarily require, it, but also it gives you additional points towards your cert.
The
So
certificate.
you will have some. I don't know the exact number. We'll also even put some of these have attached garages, so they'll have garage, they'll have a place you can have a level 2 charger.
I have another question, I believe, Dave.
Yeah, go ahead. And I was gonna add, a lot of these green certifications, there's not requirements necessarily, it's a point system.
Motivation though.
It's motivation for sure, yeah.
So the buffering, and,
Mhm.
and again, we're gonna hit with a lot here. There's more than one parcel here. Michael, is that correct?
3 total.
3 total. So the one between, well, northeast, put your cursor straight up towards Amazon. Up there. That triangle, I believe, if I'm looking at this correctly, is currently all trees. If one of you has.
I'm gonna move to the next slide.
Yeah, translate, yeah.
I'll give you a negative to work against. I'll kind of give you something to maybe appeal to us on. There's a very concerted effort in this town to reduce density. Coming in the middle of. it. There's also a good argument that we need something that's not all the way there. Hiding this is important to me. Consider. And that's the word I want to use, hiding it as much as possible. Maybe it means less units, maybe it means, I don't know. But to the east, we have the river and the flood, and you're not building down there anyway. To the southeast, you're maintaining southeast of the creek. So leasing office amenities, so that section, talk to me about what that does long-term. You guys are long-term hold. So these are, so this is your long term, a long term. So that's why I'm asking very specifically at the height. I believe it's for something else.
I can chime in
Okay,
and then
please,
you can
please do.
fill in where I missed.
And what I might do before you answer that is, now that everyone's maybe caught on to what I'm asking with this, maybe they want to tag something under this question. Where I'm going with this, and if not, please make me feel good about hiding this thing.
Yeah, so I mean, again, based on grading and topo from where Boylston is to where our development area is, there's at least 15, 20 feet of elevation change. And that is all wood. There's also a significant existing buffer in the, off of our property. And what we're doing with the site plan is keeping
In
existing
the DOT
vegetation.
property line off of their, the edge.
They're off of their roadway and then to our property line fully
And that'll
wooded, and you can see that. They have the opportunity to change that, of course, if they ever widened it, but our site plan is also working to keep existing vegetation along Boylston.
To point that out, your jagged line in the top of this slide is a DOT's.
And that's controlled access right of way.
control. That's complete
Mhm.
100%.
That's controlled
There's no
access.
full-
Fee simple, they own the
Fee simple.
property. Mhm.
Perfect. So it gets pretty close in some areas.
It does.
It's more, it's 0 in one point, it looks like, and definitely not to scale out beyond what the
This,
scale.
no,
is, but
this is
it's
the
close.
scale, with the one building that kind of sticks up into
Yeah.
that tight spot, that's the
Right.
one building that we were asking for a variance from the 30-foot to 20-foot, and that's again, based on the fact that property line juts in.
And sight line
significantly.
there is 20 foot elevation, 30 foot
Yeah.
elevation.
20, I would say pretty good 20.
So just for my peers.
Mhm. Well, I'd say you're going to want to hide Amazon from the residents more than hide the residents from Amazon.
Well, when we drive into town, I mean, this is our town limit. This is the town limit. So, one of our big pushes is maintaining the residential feel.
So would that wooded area, would you be able to see any of these residences from Boylston? On the north of, or on the top of this map?
Are we talking summer, or are we talking?
So let me ask that question. What's local here?
Well, yeah, I don't know if they're
Deciduous trees.
evergreens. Okay, yeah,
These
okay.
are all Deciduous trees
This is deciduous.
and fee simple, meaning the state has, correct me, Mr. DOT, unilateral decision making.
They do. And
Not in that area
right.
as a town.
So we can't tell them not to cut the trees. But DOT is very judicious about where they cut trees. Believe me, I still have scars from cutting some trees.
And did we think that 191 was going to be divided 4-lane highway all the way down to Mountain Road?
No, we
No,
didn't.
We did. They have the right to widen that. Saying, me, I'm creating an objection.
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe it's a density, maybe it's a shift, maybe that one doesn't get in the picture. I don't know, but I'm trying to, this is conditional zoning. Michael, can I ask a question to you, sir? There's not really a limit on the way we word these questions and what conditional zoning is that.
You ask
I'm
whatever you
encouraging
want.
We can ask more freely under condition.
Yeah, the answer is summertime. Summertime.
They're
I think it's
deciduous trees.
Pretty screened. With the existing vegetation and the elevation change, those houses are gonna feel very separated from Boylston.
Yeah, because to Brian's point, there is a push for less density and those sorts of things. And if you're driving from the airport and the first thing you see is these homes with no woods or no buffer or no site buffer,
First thing you see on the side.
yeah,
Welcome to town Milk River.
right. Okay.
And again, on both sides of my mouth here, I acknowledge. Patty, you guys, sorry, I'm not on now. Out of both sides of my mouth, I acknowledge that we need more housing that isn't top of it, and you guys are steering away from pricing, and I completely understand why.
Well, I have a question.
Well, we'll understand, we've had this and other boards be told specific prices, and we're literally $1 million over the price we were told in the
Well,
neighborhood.
But in a price point.
I'm not your price point
No.
guy. If we're gonna talk price,
You have one here there.
So
I know
Jim, if you
it's-
could we put this to rest with him? I believe his is site noises,
Okay.
if we could, just on this, just hopefully you guys are thinking about. Because I'll tell you, in my experience with large developers is, they're gonna ask for ideal to start with. Okay, there's profit in here at less than this, and if one of our suggestions is, hey, maybe it's 260 units, maybe it's 120, I don't know. We get to have that conversation in conditional zoning, guys, any conversation. So not to scare anyone, I'm encouraging you guys. So that's a big concern for me. Sightlines from 280, coming into town, welcome to Mills River, wham, and then guess what you see? Amazon, wham.
And across
This
the
is-
street at Broad Point.
But, and again, at both sides of my, my point's right, that at both sides of my mouth, this part of town, and these guys have said this part of town isn't our target residential, only, if you will, like we're trying to change the future land use map in the residential rural. You know, this doesn't have much of that on it. I believe it does have a small section of it southeast of the MR30. But, all right. Just something to think about while we're going through this.
There is, from a noise concern with the airport, you're going to have noise.
Out of
So
our town.
if I was going to come up with a condition, I would make them sign a pledge never to complain about Piper Cherokees flying over.
The one that you.
It could be. Don't worry, I don't go to Asheville.
You're wearing the shirt complaining.
So, but to me, that would be more of a concern. People like to move next to airports and then complain about the noise of the airport. And then that hits the general aviation community. But, I'll tell you my opinion, as far as the density, as far as the traffic, this is a good place for the traffic because you've got the infrastructure to handle it. Where are they going to go? They're going to go to the interstate. They may go into Mills River, do some shopping. We hope they do.
By then they'll have 4 lanes south.
They got-
into Hendersonville.
If they want to go to Hendersonville.
At least-
Yeah. So the location to build this, I think, is a lot better here than off of 280 near Longview or 191. This would be the place. For the
I'm sure we
density.
interrupted your.
Yeah, I'm
presentation,
sorry,
and I
we're-
Probably have other.
We're
questions,
already,
other
I'm
points.
sorry, I got ADD, so I've already moved on. But,
Done with what I was gonna say. I don't know if Kyle or Jesse wanted to get up and do any more. There's.
and as far as the hiding it, we would hiding it, what do we gain by people not seeing that there's the multifamily from the road pretty much? I mean, that's,
Well, the words that I hear over and over again, the rural nature of Mills River, if it's hidden, that maintain, these are beautiful. I mean, the rendering's great and all that. And it's located in an area that otherwise,
gateway.
otherwise would be industrial. So, I lean toward that, even though I'm as adamant on lots, larger, or less density as anyone, but hiding it from traffic going by maintains what I hear all the time, the rural nature of Mills River.
Would you be planting any trees along through that field toward the river?
I don't think we'll be planting much down in the floodplain. We have power lines down there. We have easements for gas lines and sewer lines, right? So we're not gonna get to plant a ton down there, and nor would they do a whole lot of good
Yeah,
down below stuff. So,
council left.
yeah, it's low too. Our residential is gonna be much higher than that, and the road is actually higher than that. So planting trees isn't gonna do a ton down below.
Well, and based on this rendering, unless you're a cow or on the river, you're not going to see those homes anyway.
I mean, as we were laying this out, we were thinking about the fact that we were trying to create natural buffers around this residential for these reasons.
You guys see the horses down in the field on your right when you're leaving, right before you get to the river? It's down there. There's utilities everywhere
Yeah.
above and below ground there.
Mhm.
You can't plant trees.
Or under the power.
You can't, yeah, right. Those are not the little power lines. So you can't plant in there. My biggest concern is that initial tree line in the northeast to Amazon. The open space back in the MR30 isn't, that's what it is. And then it's that barrier in the southeast with that creek. I think it's really well laid out. You guys know I own a real estate company. I see this all the time. This is laid out very well. It's very thoughtful. I have some ideas, but I'd like them to finish because I don't think they're done.
yeah,
You got your shirt
we keep
down.
interrupting.
So bottom line.
Mark up
we-
the screen there. Show
Bottom
everybody.
line, we'll try to leave all the buffer around that you can, right?
That's the way that it has been designed, is that you're looking for a half buffer around.
And then, Michael, under conditional zoning, we can require or request that council approve larger buffers than are rendered here, correct?
You can make a recommendation to council with specific conditions to consider, if that's what you're asking.
Yes.
Mhm.
Better worded than I did.
It's not,
but-
well, that blanket, all uses allowed. It's one use with condition to whatever we want to request, to suggest to council. Jesse, you're up, man.
Here. The staff recommended condition toward the end of the written part of the staff report about the outbound turn lane, And I don't read paragraph B, but, we can agree to that. And, I've done. And one thing I will say is, a benefit, I think, as far as you all are concerned is, this will be relatively tied to the site. So you know what you're getting. Conditions that go along with conditional zoning, statute have to be related to mitigating the negative impacts. So it's not quite wide open, but y'all are on the right track so far. Any questions you have about that, I'm happy to answer them here or that.
And one other thing to tag onto that, to answer Mr. Ross's question, remember the conditions must be agreed to by both parties in writing. So again, that's where the negotiation comes into play. Each party has the opportunity to basically say no if that's not going to work for them.
Well, I'll lead off with a question about the access. The Broad Point access is a private roadway, and also Miles View Drive. Neither of those are state maintained. So I'm sure that y'all have an agreement with the property. You have a way to make sure those are maintained. Of course, it's good business. You don't maintain your roads, you don't get residents. So it's not like it's something we got to, hammer. But just to point out that those are private roads that you're maintaining. The I'll go ahead and say I looked at traffic impact analysis, and from my opinion, it looks fine. I think if we're gonna have the traffic, this is the place to have it because it's right on the edge of town, and you've already got the infrastructure to handle it. And with the conditions, I would ask if DOT, my understanding is they have not rendered a final response to the technical memo. And I did notice that congestion management has approved the TIA as the TIA was written. Good job on that. So we still as a town can make requests or add conditions to that. I'm assuming those conditions will be part of the town's final approval. So even though we don't have the final approval on the TIA, it has been reviewed. And then the driveway permit would be subject to those conditions, the turn lane and what DOT's final comments are.
Yes.
Correct?
There's the two aspects. There's what DOT decides to accept and agree to. And then with the zoning ordinance, if and when it's adopted by council, those conditions again would be agreed to and put in writing by both parties. And that would be the zoning ordinance just for this property specifically. And then again, with preliminary master plan approval, they have 2 years to do full engineering and come back. And remember, as we wrote, I think in the conditional zoning ordinance, that comes back before this board. So, so any final master plans or fully engineered plans come back for the planning board to make sure it's consistent in the intent of the original approval.
And just so, if people really dive deep into the TIA, they might see some concerns with the levels of service down at Fanning Fields. But, to mitigate 30 seconds, really the only thing you can do is put in a signal. And DOT does not on roadways like 280, they don't want signals. That's not they want traffic to flow on corridors like 280. So it's not unusual to have a level of service F on a side street on an unsignalized intersection. And I would say that, people wanting to turn left are going to use the existing signal. You're going to know when you live there, where you can turn left, and the capacity is there for that, in my opinion. So
If we're open on questions,
Sure.
I'm ignorant to this question right here. But just so you guys know, if you haven't followed the county, they recently had a school district rezoning right here because this is so congested. So have y'all had conversations with the county public school systems about impact potential? You know, I don't know what a demographic, your target demographic is for that neighborhood, but we just had a rezoning of school district right around the corner.
Yeah, one of the things in.
We're
in
getting
North
full.
Carolina statute is the consideration about the schools is separated from
Okay.
zoning. So that's conversation with the students.
Yeah.
I think it's drew up a statute citation for you, but I think that is not consideration for.
And I did lead off with, I'm ignorant about the process on this one, so just, but since it's in the town, the part that was just rezoned is just on the other side of the river, but it affects our elementary schools. So we do have 2 elementary schools.
You know, the other thing I'd like to point out is, you know, school funding is generally tied to school enrollment.
Sure.
There are more people,
Yeah.
more kids in the
Yeah.
schools.
The funding really hasn't been, it's the capacity, it's the age of the buildings, it's the dollars to improve, and, you know, it's, the funding can be allocated by property.
Ideally, they'll get more funding. from
Right.
the local-
Well, there's more taxes here, so. Thank you.
Just for more background on that, and again, different
Perfect.
process, but when we did the special use permit for the Jeffress Road townhomes, that concern was brought up. Again, different process, quasi judicial, and basically, I think the most we could ask the developers to do was to inform the school system of the development, the
Right.
number of units, and that the school system acknowledged that. And that was about as far as we went. But
All
again,
of our permitting gets reported in one way to the county anyway, just so
And-
these guys know that, and that's how they try to predict infrastructures through county permits.
Didn't we have someone from the schools come to that, a representative? I know we had Mrs. Hill, who had a lot of experience with the schools.
it's possible one of the principals came, but I just looked at that recently because a school board member actually asked for that information as part of this decision,
Recently.
to redistrict.
That was through the Board of Adjustment, though, if I'm
Yeah, I'm talking
recalling.
about the school redistricting. Oh, you're
right.
no,
This way.
that was council.
Okay.
Sorry, what was the question?
If I remember correctly, we had someone, a principal, he's like,
Mr.
yeah.
Hart.
yeah,
Yeah, I believe it was a
He said-
principal.
bring them.
And then there was a letter from, I believe, that same principal, and then there was an email from the superintendent of the entire school system acknowledging they were aware of the development.
Any questions?
Yeah, do we have any anticipated price point figures?
%40 window, man. We're not, just get us in the ballpark.
It's a little. It's a little. tricky.
I wrote it down, range.
Yeah.
We got it.
Right, house types, one bedroom units all the way, to probably 3 or 4 bedroom units. I think as we look at it, we kind of think of it as an average square foot per square foot, and that kind of fluctuates. Our underwriting currently, from a market standpoint, is about $1.65 square foot. So that kind of fluctuates depending on the unit size, but that's kind of average numbers that we get. 1,000 square foot, it's a, call that probably a 2-bedroom. So, but it does vary because of our.
So beyond that, if you don't mind, and I know this will be projected somewhere in there, what are your costs, your association for the average? Unit in there.
Cost to build.
No, your association dues for your owners or
Oh, no, so for us, I mean, we handle all the maintenance.
okay, everything.
So it's
Okay.
all built in.
Okay, thank
Y'all actually own the building, own the property,
Correct,
and manage it.
that's right.
So there's not really a homeowner.
So this is for lease, not sale then?
The dues aren't going to be additional. You've got everything turnkey.
Pay your rent.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, when you
rent.
said they were long-term, the implication there was the rental.
Yeah.
Unit, but there's no amenities.
There are, I mean,
Charges.
there are amenities, right, so like the.
I'm sorry, amenity charges.
There's no initial amenity.
Perfect.
Just before we dive into more questions, are there more slides we need to go through from the applicant side? Okay.
I just had some.
Got it.
So just to talk to the group for a second, if you don't mind, just so, and I'm sorry, when they said they were long-term, that means this is theirs, they own this, these are rentals. So those rough prices, you know, they're gonna be 1,700 a unit. You know, for that one, in that example, you guys know how these fluctuates, cost of goods, cost of labor. You know, everything could change that. But that's the price point that's needed. And if I'm 30 to 40% above and below, could I ask one of you, these units on the south end, what are these? The shape is throwing me off a little. Yeah, the straight,
Right where where the cursor is.
right where the cursor is. Yeah. Can you tell me what those are?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's easy.
So you have others of those on there, but those are the
That's right.
easiest for me to point them to.
Yeah, it should be.
'Cause you have 8 plexes, 4 plexes, and singles that are, I mean,
Right, so what that
Patio or
product
cottage.
is that's kind of, you know, we talked about having a townhome style product that feels more and lives more like a detached home.
that's
So
the,
that's kind of what that is. So it's right, it's detached, you know, you've got a garage and there's connection between them. But you kind of have yard, you know, you have some private green space that belongs to your unit. So you feel a little more detached. It's just providing that different variety of housing types. So that's kind of the southern bank of housing, if you will. And you
Okay.
see there's a little bit more.
the center and the north.
Yeah,
Yeah,
center is.
correct,
How
correct.
many parking spaces are you proposing per unit?
Per unit.
It has to be 2, doesn't there?
Yeah.
Two per unit?
Required 2,
How about guests? How about guest parking?
near 600.
We've factored in a few guest parking spaces throughout. I mean, we're over what's required for parking, and then, you know, we're assuming that not everybody's gonna have 2 cars, but we're parking every unit with 2 cars, so we're over and we have guest parking. And then we'll have more parking at the amenity down at the southeast side, and then potentially up at the leasing center also.
I saw where you had some parallel parking.
Yep.
You're gonna
Yeah,
need a
it's-
class on the wall.
What's that?
Instructors from.
You're gonna need an instructor out there. That's a dying
Back,
art.
back to the units, like a one bedroom, how many square feet would that be?
750 based on what they were.
Yeah,
758.
that's, 750 to
Based on what
850,
we-
depending, we'll have a couple of different unit types likely, but that's kind of our average 1 bedroom.
And that would be 1,400, 1,450. Month.
Back to the parallel parking, you know, the kids of Mills River will learn to parallel park. That is a life skill.
We'll send them over here.
I got
I
2
had to
teams.
find standards in the Henderson County, but I didn't find anything with Mills River for parallel parking, so.
Michael, on the watershed, I mean, we're downstream from. How does that watershed work? I mean, I know they've already, I'm curious.
Yeah, so there's no water supply
They're downstream from
watershed,
it, right?
but it falls into the state phase 2 post-construction
oh,
area.
okay.
So just like the Jeffress Road townhomes,
I'm sorry, I'm with you.
it'll be permitted through the state, but there will be stormwater controls.
Stormwater control, but they're not in our shed because they're north,
Correct.
but they're downstream of it.
Because it
'cause-
flows
Right.
downstream of both water
Right,
intakes.
right, sorry.
Any more questions?
What's the lodge, guys? That's your leasing and then it transitions to something long-term? Northwest by Amazon, your first ingress.
Oh yeah, so we called it the lodge on there. Yeah, that's kind of leasing.
Sorry,
area.
that was your label, not mine.
Um,
Did y'all abandon that name and you didn't know what I was
we
talking about?
threw it all as a placeholder.
That's all right.
No, so that'll be kind of long-term leasing and amenities. So it'll have like a fitness center up
Okay.
there, resident lounge, but that's where
Okay.
our property management team will be officed, and that's where we'll
Mhm.
maintain the site.
Okay. Thanks.
And I'll add to that, but we positioned it up there, you know, because of the discussion about trying to buffer a little bit from Amazon. So we kept that use. It's part of it's a residential accessory use, but kind of feels more like a commercial front facing use. So that's why we put that up there and then buffer the homes.
If you guys are out of questions, I've got one more. Michael, can you give me the one that shows in color what David was speaking to with the tree buffer onto the aerial? Yes, please. legally, I'd like to hold you guys hostage to the hiding part, long-term, since you're holding this. When you're not holding this, I'm assuming it's sold. You guys hold a lot of your own. Yeah,
The
yes.
3D one or that one?
But I would point out to my peers up here that if they strip everything between there and 280, they're going to be less desirable and drive their revenues down. The trees for the revenue, it makes sense to them. So I'd love to hold them hostage legally, but I just want to point that out. That becomes less desirable and turns down money.
Does make sense.
And for DOT to come clear cut,
They,
controlled access,
they don't want that.
like I say, I've been on the state side of that and that was not fun. So I think the buffer to screen from the residences to the road is going to be important enough from a selling. If you live next to a 4 or 5 lane highway, you do get used to some of the noise, but anything that you can do to eliminate some of that noise certainly helps. So in order to get people to live in those units, you'll either have to really lower the price or take them out there on a snow day when there's no traffic, unless there's buffering. So you're going to have buffering, and that's self-critiquing, my opinion.
And with the long-term, business model of this, all the incentives are aligned to create a great development, because they're the ones who have to sell it to people who want to, live there. Another thing that I want to point out that was just pointed out to me recently, is you see the landscaping trees kind of dotted in there from a hiding, from the hiding standpoint. This is the development at its most stark, when you go to an older residential neighborhood and you see all these old, beautiful, mature trees, they grew up over time, and these trees will as well, and it'll just be more and more wooded and more hidden. Somebody pointed that out to me recently, and
Are all of these units basically townhouses?
so I wish the architects were here to answer that. My understanding is for building and residential code purposes.
Show the perspective rendering. Say it again.
They're not. So
There
some
you
of the
go.
buildings, and you can see them on the plan a little bit.
2-story right here.
So you've got some 2-story, we've got some 1-story mixed in there as well. So they're kind of that townhome or a townhome-esque project, but kind of spaced out. So you get that green space in between. We also have, it's hard to see them in this image, but on the prior plan, if we can jump back to it, there's some more square shaped buildings that you see on your plan down here, and that where the cursor is now. Those are those smaller scale apart.
And those are 8-plex.
2-story, 8-plexes, yes, so four units per.
So their parking is parking lot. Some of your,
That's right, the parking fields there, Jason.
Michael, where's the town on that courtyard style parking? Because it encroaches within,
It's all based on the conditions
so that's up
proposed
to
in the
the town
district.
council. Okay.
Yeah, and part of it with some of the conditions for.
Yeah, for the 10-foot setback on your park. Yeah, and that's for the courtyard style ones
The
only.
courtyard and for the townhouse, because they have attached styles around.
Okay.
And there's
Okay.
no real distinction in
Okay.
the ordinance for attached versus detached parking
Okay,
or surface parking, so that's why we.
Okay. Thank you. I breathed for a minute to let you guys ask questions, then I'm gonna ask more, so, sorry. Michael, one of the points Jesse made when he was speaking was that, a lot of notes, I'm probably not gonna find it, so you just have to interpret what I'm getting ready to say. That within the, comprehensive plan, that it, don't quote me, here, promoted affordable housing. There was something to that effect in the comprehensive plan. Do you have that language available to explain to us?
The actual reference for that goal.
Yeah, because I'm sorry, you guys gave us a lot here. I could take 10 minutes flipping papers and interrupting with that.
If you give me 30 seconds on
If
that.
you don't mind.
And one of our statements of consistency is the variety and mix of housing types, but
Which-
that's
which
not
number is that?
necessarily affordable. Objective 2.2.
Okay. Back page of Michael's packet shows the consistency statement in 2.2. There it is, a policy 2.2.1, allow for a variety of housing types, including single-family dwellings, apartments, multiple unit buildings, townhomes, condominiums, accessory housing, and manufactured homes. Is that from the comprehensive plan? I mean, is that what you're looking for right now?
Yeah, of course, I don't have that page, but, basically,
Attachment P as in papa.
yeah, so that is the draft statement of consistency that staff puts together. And again, we just try to hit the biggest buckets where we think it's consistent. There is, I mean, Jesse can read it into the record again, if you want, but there is an additional policy that talks about affordable and workforce housing. Just personally, I did use that as a statement of consistency for the townhomes off Jefferson
Yep.
Road. Not everyone agreed with that interpretation, so I did not do it this time. That's the simplest an answer as I can give.
Again, I would say, speaking out of both sides of my mouth, our objectives to have a more rural feel. This isn't in the area, I mean, the town needs this. And it's in an area where I feel it could be supported if it's gonna happen, and this isn't gonna be the last request. You know, part of me would like to say, nope, this just eats up square footage of green space. No. I know my 16-year-old will say that when I get home. No.
Although I don't have that specific policy on the affordable workforce housing. Again, there's the 6 primary goals of the comprehensive plan that are at the beginning of the document. And you're right, again, the one we've been hitting on a lot is goal 1, protect and enhance the rural small town character of Mills River. But one of the ones we don't hit on a lot is number 6, encourage housing choices for persons of all ages and different income levels. Now, that's not one that I normally reference, because again, it's not part of an objective in policy, but that is an overall goal of the comprehensive plan.
So one of the objections we've had in increasing the rural feel, which by my nature is to increase the minimum buildable lot size. Right now, the conversation is what, 1.5 acres? That's the conversation, right? A lot of the pushback has been, you're gonna drive people out of here that there's nothing down the ladder for them to buy. What if this was packaged with that? You know, yes, Schoolhouse Road out to Kimsey, is that where we're at, on Kimsey Road, southwest, down, you know, that's where we're focusing on that more rural feel. We do have a need for this, and we could satisfy both of these objectives, the rural feel,
Mhm.
right?
And that's why I
and
say
the housing.
this is
And
the
if you're
place
gonna
for
put it
this.
somewhere.
This is the
fringe,
place.
I mean, guys, the airport's right there, fairgrounds. I mean,
I-26. I mean, this for people that can't afford to live in Asheville. I talk to people all the time that can't afford to live in Mills River. Oh, you're from Mills River. Wow, I wish I could afford that. I'm like, I wish I could afford it too. If it hadn't been left to me, I couldn't afford it. Where are my kids gonna live?
I just wonder if you don't package this as some of that. Yeah, we do have more than one objective to address. We do.
Question is, I'm vaguely familiar with this, where this property is at. Is this all wooded property now?
When you're heading northeast towards Fletcher, Jim,
I know where it's at.
that
but
big field.
I've never been physically on the property.
Oh, have you been at Miles View?
I've got the GIS map.
I believe there's a couple of older homes that in there, right?
Say it again, sorry.
Is there a couple of older homes in that property?
There's a home and there's some barns, there's some paddocks. Yeah.
Tennis court,
tennis courts, so-
riding rink.
On there, actually. I think they Airbnb them both.
Yep.
And all those are in with this property, right?
There you go, right there.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
We don't have one, but an overlay of their site plan, their master plan with this, everything to the east, slight southeast of that creek is essentially conserved green space for lack of, I don't know if you guys are actually putting in conservancy, or if you're maintaining fee simple on everything. And then up to the northwest a little bit as well, or the west of that creek. The development would, you know, if you can kind of picture that master plan of theirs overlaid on this. they're not taking down as many trees as you might think. The north and the central north. Primary ingress is Broad Point. Secondary is Miles View. Both are, as Jeff pointed out, are private.
If you
Would you
look-
expand, would you have to expand Miles View to DOT standards? No? That, with that,
That-
Yeah.
if it's being brought to DOT standards.
Yeah.
As part of it in
Part-
order
okay.
to have it as an
I didn't look
access,
at,
yeah.
or
That's
that
just
was-
the way. If you were to take Amazon and move it to the east, look how many trees you're gonna lose. So if this stays with current zoning and the only thing that can go in there is industrial,
Well, I understand there's some complications with it, but even if they go with the minimal industrial build, it's less trees than what it's less conserved. There's no conservation mindset with industrial.
Mm-mm.
That's not the mindset.
no, that's not.
Jeff, and you know a lot about air flight traffic. I know we looked at this once before about rezoning a small parcel, I think. But there was a representative from the airport came and he had some concern. Do you remember what that was about?
Light,
Light?
Is that,
which we've addressed.
yeah, with the lighting ordinance, that'll be taken care of. And this is, without getting into the pilot talk, when we're flying into the runway, sometimes they'll make you fly turning left. So if I'm landing this way and I'm staying in the traffic pattern or coming in to land, they may have me come to the south and then make a left turn sometimes they have you make right turns. It's all depending on who's out there flying and what they're in. They got a lot of training. There are going to be a lot of small airplanes turning overhead from the flight school. But, from a safety perspective, that doesn't worry
It
me.
shouldn't interfere with.
No, it shouldn't, not at all. And the buildings are so short. Now, if it were to be 10-story buildings, we might have the FAA involved. In fact, the hotel right next to Lowe's had to have an FAA waiver or FAA determination, put that in. It's not going to be a factor here.
And Mr. Oliver, I think what you're remembering is the property that was rezoned where my cursor is right here. And so basically, when we send out the public notice, because the adjacent property is the airport property on the other side of the river, the airport receives a notice. And I don't want to speak for them, but I believe it's FAA policy that basically they come out and speak against any incompatible development adjacent to airport land, which they consider to be any residential. So after we send the public notice letters out, you will probably see another airport official taking a similar stance. And that's probably what they did for the Taproot residential development as well. The only difference there is these units would look into the flight path, whereas the Taproot residences are underneath it.
These two questions are out of ignorance from me. One is pricing obviously is completely up to the property owner. Correct? Okay, and then it's not quite ignorant, I knew that. Are there going to be limits based on age for these units? Age of individuals, not
No,
age
there's
of.
not.
Okay. But that's still subject to change and up to the property owner over time.
Eventually, yes. I mean, we have no projects in our entire portfolio that are age restricted. I think the only one we have, I mean, I guess we have a minimum age limit, right? You gotta be a certain age to rent.
You guys know we have a lot of 55+ communities at 100% rental. That's not they're not looking for that. That wouldn't make good return on their investment. And they don't have the amenities for it anyway, for what they would want in an ownership one.
Where would the main entrance?
Left of Amazon if you're looking from 280.
Where?
Left of Amazon, Amazon's put up the trees, so they're trying to hide a little.
Okay.
Left of those trees.
I know you can get to the
There you
property. That way.
The secondary egress is Pepsi or behind to the right of Amazon.
I'll scroll back to the site plan real quick so you can see.
They have to have two
So again,
egress.
there'd be an access on Miles View Drive.
There you go.
I don't know if you want to call it the primary, but the main one would be through Broad Point.
Is that where you're requiring a left or a south?
The
No.
main entrance would be a Broadway, you said.
I mean, it's up to the applicant, what they call what entrance. I don't, I mean,
Yeah,
It's that one.
we would consider it the Broad Point entrance, the primary one, mainly because that's kind of how we positioned our leasing office and the amenities up there as you come in. And then the secondary access off of Miles View, the turn lane that we discussed, and Alan, if I'm wrong, is off of Fanning Fields,
That's-
just off of Miles View. So a left turn
That's
from
right.
Fanning Fields on.
Yeah, thank you for reminding that. You said that earlier.
It's going to expand the tax base, correct? That's one of the goals of the comprehensive plan. I know that's a concern with some of the projects that we're wanting to fund, having
Yeah, so.
more of a tax base.
You know, I looked at the GIS and the tax bills and all this. I think most of the taxes on this are, you know,
It's in a rollback right now.
there's not much being paid.
Yeah.
Also, you know, the town will have to provide some services here, but the clustering makes providing those services very efficient. You know, trash pickup, like don't have to drive miles and miles and miles to do this number of units. They're all right there, like that.
Our services we provide aren't quite that extensive.
Well,
Someone's going to
maybe
get the
one day.
trash, but
Yeah, it ain't us.
don't look at this building to figure it out.
code enforcement and permitting.
And fire protection. And Parks and Rec, we provide a beautiful park here. It's open.
And maybe if you had more like this, you could afford trash pickup too.
So it's currently in deferred. The taxes are, so I mean, the county determines our assessed values and that property is going to be assessed in the millions. And they won't be able to defer anything. That big master plan for the park that we've all seen so much of lately.
So this might pay, it might help out with that a little bit.
Well, one of the
Wait a
big-
minute, can we tie him to that? Can
One of
we-
the big, one of the big things, it sounds like it's gonna be fairly hidden from 280, that's good. The other thing, you know, I brought up about the affordable housing. The more, smaller homes, I'd like to see as much of that as possible for that purpose. Because we hear that all the time about the necessity of affordable, housing here. So.
If they could manage more development percentage of this under light industrial, this is a far better alternative. In my opinion, it also, even though it goes against my nature to build on the green space, it's in an area that fits. It could be worse. I know that's a cop-out, but it could be worse if somebody came in with deep enough pockets to make that light industrial work. And it's something we need. And it could help with the argument of the 1.5 that we're going for
Mhm.
as kind of, if you want to look for an offset.
When you think about, we do have some businesses nearby. I think I read something about across the street at Broad Point, a new use coming in there. Are people going to live that work there? They're going to have to drive to Mills River or through Mills River to get there if they can't afford to live in Mills River. And that's one of the things, you know, I'm well over half 100 now. And, you know, the only way my kids can afford to live in Mills River is if I die and leave them my property because they sure can't afford to buy it.
Michael, I know it's not going to be official if you'll even answer it, but do we have a Jeffers rentals, right? Do we have a price point on those? And a function? 2.2s, I
For the
think.
Jeffers townhomes? Oh, and a function of the units?
Yeah, 2.2.
So again, because conditional zoning is what allowed these different product types, because our standard multifamily
Right.
ordinance only considered rectangular buildings with, I think, 2 to 6 units, maybe 3 to 6. So the ones you'll see at Jeffers are just gonna be standard rectangular townhome
With
units
four.
with up to six connected.
six, okay.
There are a couple of them where there might be two or three, but that's just corner lots.
Do you know their price points?
I don't remember
Okay,
that.
I'm just curious. Because
Well,
that's,
we did-
those are
we
gonna
did-
go,
We discussed
immediately.
But you're-
initially,
You're
yeah.
right, it's,
talking $1,800 to try.
is that what,
Reference
okay.
Then the guy told me right out in the hall the night, in final approval, he said, I believe it when I see it though. He said, I believe we're gonna come in under that. So
Look, supply and
doubt
demand
it
drives
with the
all
way
of that,
things are.
right? That's a
all about-
supply and demand
Mhm.
thing. They can't fix that.
I know.
They hate being cornered on those questions, but my question was more to establish some kind of base for what the current supply and demand is. When the supply goes up, you know, hey, at least these are tax dollars going to our park. If you guys haven't looked at a map, Taproot Dairy and Riverstone, they're gonna be using our park. We collect nothing.
Yeah, if this were going in off of North Mills River Road or near the Ingalls, that'd be a different discussion.
I agree. It's in the right spot and there's a need and it could be worse. No one wants to hear that.
And if you do happen to see it from 280, it's not gonna look that bad.
Billy, what you think?
It's gonna be looking a lot better than some of the other.
What do you think, man? You hear people saying they need this housing?
We need to think about our schools overflowing.
Our schools are overflowing.
We're up here to slow this down and here we are.
Right?
Let's do it.
Right.
I don't look like.
It contradicts in some ways our other agenda, right?
They gonna help pay for bigger schools
The tax base, I mean, it's,
eventually.
right. Right.
Kids, you know, we're busting.
So let me ask them a question. So today, everything goes smoothly. When's your first resident move in? It's years, but
Yeah, it's years. You know, we're probably, I'd say, call it 6 to 9, probably 9 months before we even break ground.
touch the ground, okay.
And then you're probably 18
You're at
months
least
to,
18.
yeah, you're probably at least 2 years.
And you guys are
And with-
pre-leasing at ground break?
No, we
No,
wouldn't start
okay,
until
okay.
we're closer.
Cause
to
I
it.
mean, you're,
Yeah.
And with your mix of homes, there's 295, 200 and around 290 units.
Yeah.
Portion of those are going to be single bedroom, probably not conducive to having kids in school.
Correct.
So
That's right.
probably the 2 bedroom and up.
That's where you start to see.
And
it
so of the
manifest.
290, you probably won't have 290 2 bedrooms. There'll
Yeah,
be,
there'll be a component that's, you know, I
You're
think
gonna
the,
have,
the plan that we're looking at here, I think has 80 to 90 of those 1 bedroom
Mhm.
units.
Now, is it gonna be affordable for your kids? Now.
Mhm.
for the Mills River ready.
more affordable than these single family homes we're addressing.
and that's the thing, you know, is
Farm.
it's. And I would think at some point in time when I'm tired of maintaining the land, my kids can have it and I'll move into someplace. I talk my wife into it.
My reason,
know,
Billy, for asking them the
but-
timeline is because once their permit's approved, the county is made aware of it. They have to be. So that's why the move on Taproot Dairy way before occupancy has shifted things around. Because they can do a demographic study and determine that as far in advance as they can. So they move the lines. But our schools are gonna bust at the seams. No matter what.
let's say this point. First time I saw this was when I walked in here at 6:15. So I'm not in favor of voting tonight. I'd like to see us take a breather for the next meeting, come back with,
Ms. Brown, you sent out an email.
yes, but I couldn't open.
Okay,
I mean, I couldn't open this.
okay.
Because I normally print out everything. And
There was a,
spend a lot of time reading it, but I couldn't get this to print. anyway.
okay.
This, I just saw at 6:15, so that's why I think we need to take a breather tonight, come back next month and vote one way, or yes or no.
Just a thought, I think that's what Billy says, but I think what Billy's thinking, why don't we, I'm not gonna pretend to be what you're thinking, but you know, this is all wooded, a couple of homes on there. Why don't we maintain this as a rural part of Mill River and that sort of thing, maybe what you're thinking. But if we tried to, not in this case, because they already own it and they've made it, but if for some reason, or some way we had the ability to say, let's make this our new rural residential zone, that would be subject, beside all the other hurdles we can get there, to like spot zone, wouldn't it? Because it doesn't really.
Well, because it's light industrial, I don't think that would be an option.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm just saying, that's my point. That's not an option, I don't think. And it's either industrial or housing. And what I do agree with Jesse is the only thing we can hang our hat on is can't control price or anything, like that, it's supply and demand. And, you know, that's the one thing that if there's more supply, again, there could be more people move here than the supply we create as well. We can't control that, but it's either gonna be industrial or this.
And community center is the future land use map? Or industrial and employment? Industrial, so it's light industrial right now, so this isn't something we would be talking about rural residential
And I do
anyway.
know, I'm just saying that's not.
Mhm.
But no, just to remind us, I mean, it's industrial now and it's industrial in the future land use map. And it's not something that it would be we're not trying to change that zoning to the more rural that we're talking
Right.
about.
I basically agree with the concept.
Right.
But I just think additional zoning, which we've talked a lot about, you need to come up with a list of conditions. And I don't think tonight's to do it.
We do have a written list of proposed conditions it's in your packet.
Well, you got some. But like I say, I just saw the packet. I haven't had time to really.
Jim, I would, agree with you. There's no reason to make a decision tonight. I mean,
Yeah.
this is a big packet.
I mean, I basically agree with the concept. It's needed, yes. But I just, we put a lot of thought into the conditional zoning previously, so we need to come up with a firm list of what we suggest condition. And I think we could do that best next meeting.
And just logistics, we have discussed that. Remember, there are no regular board meetings in July. So if this were tabled, it would come back at the August 6th
Why
meeting.
can't we have a meeting in July?
If that's the board's pleasure, that's fine. I'm
Well,
just saying.
we do have a special meeting.
We have a special
We
meeting. I know,
do,
set up
and
already.
typically the town doesn't hold the meetings in
Well,
July.
it's not that I'm trying to get out of devoting the time to it. I'll be available. If you want to have 2 meetings dedicated to this, I don't care in July, but I just think we need to do that. Like I say, I basically agree with the concept.
This is something maybe we can talk with Mike about after this, but I think I heard at the beginning when you're talking about the rules for planning board that it can be tabled for up to 30 days. Is that right? So I think there would have to be a special meeting.
Possible because of our weird
I
schedule.
think you did say that. Thanks for the reminder.
How about the rest of the board?
Can it be the end of June? Patty, is there a way to do a second meeting this month, or is there any openings on the
Why
calendar?
can't we have a regular meeting in July?
Well, we have,
Days is July 4th, so that's-
Well,
we got to be before, and
staff has a life too. And no, you don't. Okay, you do.
Traditionally, for many years, planning board met twice a month,
Yes,
the first and third Tuesday of the month. So theoretically, we could have a meeting on Tuesday, the 18th.
it should be this.
No, June 11th, the 18th of June. Or you could put it off till July.
The 25th wouldn't work.
Staff, what's,
25th work.
There is a parks meeting on Tuesday, the 25th.
I'm going to say the 18th enough, because I think this is a lot of information, and you guys know I'll come up with more questions, but
Or
I'm
there's-
leaning, but I'm not
there's-
ready to approve right now either, Jim. Just
July the 2nd. Are you here? You're not here, but Mike's here.
July the 2nd, that's 4th of July week.
Yes.
I mean, I would be more inclined to
Or
the 18th of June.
me too. I don't
And
know if the applicant has anyone that could make it back then, or if you could bring an architect with you.
can we determine, I mean, they're having to pay people to come in. Not that we don't want to see you again with traffic, but I think we're comfortable with traffic, right?
I think I'm good with David as well.
Mm-hmm. So,
Jesse and an
you know,
architect, maybe.
I think if we do require them to come back, we don't need to require everybody, unless you're always welcome in Mills River. So please feel free to come back, bring your dog, go for a walk, play a little pickleball. But, you know, if we do that, I mean, I've seen enough. I've read this. I went through it. I'm comfortable with it. So I would vote yes tonight. But
I'm
I'm
not
one
yet
vote.
because I feel that in order to
I'm
get
one
there,
vote.
there would be pressure to get enough yeses, and I don't like that. So I
Mhm.
don't feel like enough questions have been asked by everybody. Is the only reason I'm not a yes yet. I'm almost there.
So one thing I will point out too is y'all are advising town council.
Correct.
The conversation doesn't stop with you guys. You can bring up additional concerns between now and town council. You can, you know, you can talk to the town council members. I don't want to push you to make a decision tonight because it is, I mean, it's y'all's role, it's y'all's job to basically do the homework of town council on this. I think staff has done a fantastic job, but I did want to point out that the conversation does not stop tonight.
Michael, if we'd met on the 18th, when could this be in front of council? If we pushed it through on the 18th? Because they don't have a early July meeting either.
August 8th. Yeah,
So if we approved it tonight, when would it be in front of town council?
August 8th.
August 8th.
Currently it's August
Yeah,
22nd.
okay. So we're not delaying the presentation to town council.
They don't meet in July, no.
Whether
but
we,
they do meet in June, but this was not scheduled to go to them, correct?
they,
Yeah, and we wouldn't have time to make public advertisements.
for our part in this tonight or the 18th, it's getting in front of town council on August 8th,
Or 22nd.
What
August
date did-
something, no matter what.
What date did we move that, our next meeting up to in July?
It's July 20, yeah.
23rd?
Special.
But that's
Okay,
a
yeah.
special meeting, I believe, town council,
Yeah.
and public and
That will
everything.
be a-
So we can't add this to that.
It'll be a lengthy
Well,
meeting anyway.
Time.
Right.
Yeah, well, it's,
You could, but I would highly advise if we're doing public outreach for a large scale rezoning in a special meeting, we just keep it to that.
if you're polling us, I would say the 18th for us. There's no reason to rush it. We can get it in front of town council on August 8th.
There's
So
nothing
that
else.
would require a motion to table it for 2 weeks.
I would also add to that, that meeting be only for this. That we not add anything else onto it.
I would make that motion.
At this. Sure. Sure. I don't see any reason, we can still do Zoom. We can have
You
someone
can zoom one
attend
person in if you
with
need.
Zoom, right? Can't participate?
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
oh, sorry.
I could text you the whole time.
You can't participate though. So,
I don't know if I.
Can a member submit written questions? Did he submit written questions for the chair to read?
yeah, that's not participating, so
Yeah,
I'm
and-
good.
And this is, you know, it's a legislative hearing, so you can, you know, there can be an exchange between the applicant and board members outside of this meeting. potentially.
And that is true. So it's not under the same rules as quasi judicial. So, you know, there's no reason you couldn't submit questions. That's fine.
Jim, is that a motion, sir? To table it to the 18th?
So we have a motion to table this till the 18th of June at 6:30. Is that the time? Is that,
With this our only item on the
With the
agenda.
only
but
item.
this is our only item.
I'll second.
We do have a second from Mr. Oliver. So all those in favor? Wait, Mr. Lonnie? Okay, all those in favor
Aye.
and opposed? I'm opposed, but I'm one vote. So. Okay. That being said, thank y'all for coming out tonight. Let me find my agenda. Additional items and board comments. Do we have any
Yeah,
additional
I
items?
do have a
or comments?
comment. I do
Yes.
have a comment. I spoke with residents of Mills River by happen chance who said they listened to all the board meetings,
Uh-oh.
Uh-huh.
the planning board meetings, that is, and that they had wanted to write a letter, based on conversations that we had and so forth. And my recommendation would be to, come to a meeting,
Please come to a meeting.
we can, having a public meeting doesn't mean we can't, that's not the only time we can have public input, right? So any
Right.
meeting, so I'd recommend anybody who's listening, thinking about writing a letter, has a comment, has a thought, has anything, it always helps to be here, to hear these things, to hear what everybody has to say. It should be participatory.
They can write letters that Patty can read in.
They
We
can do
have
all
a-
that, but I'm just saying, I don't want to interpret their thoughts for them. I want, them to show up and so forth. But I would just encourage everybody at any meet, read the agenda. If it's something that you're passionate about or not, or want to know more, then attend the meeting.
Please
ask
do,
questions and so
and-
forth. I would just encourage everybody to do that. That's my comment.
And I would say if someone wants to come to a meeting and they listen to the meeting, at the end of the meeting, something comes to their mind, they want to have public comment, we'll open it back up. Because sometimes until the meeting's over, you don't have anything to comment on. So that would very much appreciate anyone coming to our meetings. Otherwise, decisions are made without your input, and that's not how it should be. Staff updates.
No update tonight.
Okay. And with that, with no updates, I'd entertain a motion.
Make a motion to adjourn.
All right. Yes, I would like to say thank you. You did a great job, and we appreciate the hard work staff. We're very blessed with the best staff. So we do have a motion to adjourn and a second. I thought I heard someone.
A second.
Okay. And Mr. Foster gives us a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.